Thank you for joining. Our topic of the webinar is ROAS Dead? And we have so many great points of views to join us and really get through this conversation. I'll go through just some agenda items right now and we'll get started. Feel free to hop in the chat with any questions too. We really want to make this engaging and interactive as we can. So we've got our speakers today. We'll go ahead and do some intros and then we'll get into our topic for the day. So SJ here from Justuno, Partner Marketing Manager, and have been working with clients here to help them optimize their website for all kinds of traffic and for all kinds of reasons. So I'm really excited to hear from everyone today, to speak to all the speakers and get their point of view and see kind of what we can mix and what makes sense for this kind of topic. Would love to take it over to McAllister from Clickly. Can we get an intro?
Yes. My name is McAllister. I've been with Clickly for almost a year and a half now. Clickly helps drive sales for brands on a commission-based model. Helped out on sales, partnerships, a little bit of account management. So kind of been on all aspects of brand onboarding and seeing what brands need. So I'm excited to have the webinar with y'all.
Heck yeah, McAllister, you do it all. You do it. Perfect. Alan, can we get an intro, please?
For sure. Yeah, Alan Bird here. I'm the founder at Blue Stout. We're a Shopify Plus design and development firm. Our claim to fame is focusing on conversions. So if you have any questions as to how you can pump more revenue from your existing ads by optimizing your site, that's where we're going to come in and help you guys out.
Heck yes. Thank you, Alan. Elizabeth from Dacity, can we get an intro?
Hey there, Elizabeth Cruz here. I've been at Dacity for about 2.5 years now, and I head up our team of merchant strategists. So Dacity, we're a data analytics SaaS platform that helps support retail brands. And then my team helps customize the analytics solution for retail brands because no two businesses are exactly the same. So excited to be here.
100%. I was just going to say, like, the more custom like requests, those are so popular, of course, with all the data that you get. Yeah, Audacity, all the data. Data dump, but in a good way.
Yes, exactly.
Aaron, can we get an intro from Recart, please?
What is happening? Always glad to jump in on a Justuno anything. I'm Aaron Orndorff, head of marketing at Recart. We're an SMS app to cost less, sell more, and drive real growth. I know that's the elephant in the room, drive real growth from an SMS platform, talking about ROAS or ROI or anything like that. So you can rest assured I cut my paid media teeth at a beautiful, uber smart, talk about data dump agency at NYC in California. Common Thread Collective. So I got a little bit of skin in the actual game, and I'm gonna try to lean into that today.
Excellent. Virginia from customers.ai, can we get an intro?
Hey. I'm Virginia Nessie. I'm a marketing VP at Customers AI. We are a visitor identification and remarketing platform with consumer and B2B data enrichment, which can be used for segmentation and personalization. I was the first marketer on the team, so it's been a real honor to develop our platform to solve a lot of the evolving challenges for digital marketers, namely around attribution and remarketing. And I'm really excited to talk to this panel and share our insights today.
Amazing. Thank you, Virginia. I'm excited to hear from you. And Nava, can we get an intro from Optimizer?
Absolutely. First, thank you so much for inviting me and my Optimizer perspective on the panel. There are so many incredibly clever perspectives here, so I'm excited to learn and to share. As was said, my name is Nava Hopkins over at Optimizer. Brand evangelist is an interesting title. My actual job is I sit in between our product team, our sales team, our marketing team, our customer success team, and take insights from the industry to help influence our product development, and then take insights from our thousands of accounts that use Optimizer to manage their Google ads, their Microsoft, their Amazon, their Facebook, and share those insights on the global stage. I also am on the board of the Paid Search Association, so I get to sit at the same table as Google, Facebook, LinkedIn. So I'm here just to basically share perspectives, but then also help answer any questions that I possibly can on ROAS and whether we should call it dead or we should call it evolved.
Yes, thank you, Nava. Perfect intro to our agenda for today. So we're getting into reliable measurements, kind of what that means, Then we're getting into replacing ROAS, what that looks like, and attribution, kind of a bigger topic, but we'll narrow it down from our perspectives. So let's start out with, what does reliable ROAS measurement look like to you? From the Justuno perspective, when we do have someone hopping on site, we're all about that real-time revenue, that real-time conversion. So when it comes to reliable, we're thinking about what engagements are happening that can show us a little bit more intent to get to that conversion. And conversion meaning just further down to the actual checkout point where they're putting in their payment information. And so reliable to me feels more like real-time engagement and real-time kind of real-time interjection into your website to continue that whole effort that your ads or your offsite paid media is trying to do. So a little more real-time than I think like what I typically see brands doing. But with the on-site experience, it is all about delivering something personalized and something that is dynamic as well. So it's more about the experience and looking at the overall metric at that point. Would love to take it over to Nava to get your perspective on this one.
So I think the key part of this question is reliable. Reliable means you're using the same sources of truth to define each metric, and you're allowing for enough time and data to build. So ROAS in today's privacy-first world is going to rely far more on conversion modeling and taking that real-world data and importing it in. So making sure you're using enhanced conversions, offline conversions, but also making sure that your tag manager or however you're using to track your pixels or cookies is actually set up correctly. So ROAS as a metric is much more now an operational question than it is a profit strategy question. It's so the more that you can get comfortable in the weeds, the less scary the ROAS question will be.
I love that. Yes, the less scary. And that's a great point. Just setting it up correctly will take you so far in the beginning. And that is a lot of learning, right? It is a lot of kind of trial and error and seeing what works. But I think a lot of platforms are giving you that data or making it available, like with Dacity and those custom reports. So you can get a little more in the weeds, but feel comfortable with it. Excellent. Can we take it over to Alan at Blue Stout for what you're thinking on this one?
Yeah, sure. So from our perspective, we're always taking a look at this from the site side. At the end of the day, we're not an ads team. We don't drive traffic. We're never in the weeds of ad platforms. But what we hear from our clients and brands all the time is that what they see and what the ROAS is being delivered to them on the platform side always never seems to make any sense. They're always trying to balance that out with what do we actually see on the site side? If we do deep dives into Google Analytics, what are we seeing and how can we sort of match these numbers up to see what is correct and what's making sense? So what we always recommend is building out a model on the site side that's going to segment your data based upon those traffic channels. So if you're driving from Meta, making sure you're understanding very specifically on a monthly basis, what is the average revenue that's being driven for every single site visitor that's coming from Meta during that period of time, and then segmenting it by new versus returning, et cetera. So you can get that very granular look to understand, okay, we're getting a ROAS number over here from Meta that's saying this, but when we look at GA, we're seeing that the average revenue we're driving per each one of those site visitors is actually this. And so it's really just about sort of balancing that out so you can make sure you've got viewpoints not just from the attribution platform or from Facebook, but also from the site side. So we highly recommend setting up some sort of a custom. We like to use Data Studio, but like to set up something on the site side that's going to segment that GA data for you, so you can match it back to the ad platform.
That's awesome. The match back makes total sense. For this, you're saying like revenue. I also think about like average order value being really granular. Yeah. That's like the same to you?
Yeah, and we could talk about this for hours in terms of how much you want to segment it. But I think like the first stepping point is, don't let all that data sit in a GA, and especially now with GA4, it's such a mess. Anybody who's trying to dig into GA4 knows it's just a massive headache. And so extract that from GA4. We like to build custom data studios to then slice the data all up. But yeah, looking at everything from average revenue per site visitor, understanding. I mean, you can also segment that down by product type, by collection types. If you understand how your margins are different for different types of collections products, You can also sort of back into the profitability. So there's so much you can do once you get that granular slice of data. And, you know, as much as people complain about GA and GA4, it's still a fantastic data source if you know how to slice it and look at it the right way.
Yeah, you know how to get that set up, which I feel like you're the perfect person to help get that set up too and review that.
Do it all the time.
Yeah, you took it into such strategy. I love that. Yeah, thank you so much. Would love to take it over to Virginia at customers.ai to hear what you have to say about this one.
I would say I'm very much like nodding my head as I listen to Nava, the challenge of making sure that you've got things tracking appropriately. There are, you know, we've had to move away from trusting, as you said, Alan, GA data. So like Google Enhanced conversions, making sure that's, you know, set up properly. Google Shopify is a little bit more accurate, but ultimately the first party data is the gold standard of what you're looking for here. So if you can tie in the full revenue picture with the full customer journey, then you're looking at a solution which is something like a CDP. That's where you can get the most reliable and consistent data.
Thank you. Yeah, that made me think that getting the most out of the journey, it does mean conversion at the end of the day, but it also means initiating that feedback loop. So maybe that means getting them into your SMS channel with Aaron so that you can then get them into a survey, understand what products to recommend later on, or create like a specific segment to that. And it's about that attribution, learning about just maybe where they're learning about you, which could be a touch point you don't even know about with your whole ad strategy. So yeah, great perspective on that, Virginia. Thank you. Which I mentioned Aaron here. Let's take it over to Ricart. What are you thinking on this?
Yeah, you know, what was already highlighted about, you know, the phrase matching, whether it's GA4 or I'm a big fan. Last year, Shopify released their marketing reports, which is separate from the analytics tab. And so now you can actually look at different attribution models, last click, last non-direct click, all clicks, which gives you a really tight UTM base. It also is directly synced with all of the sales channels that are set up there. So their integration with Facebook and Google work very well. It's easy to identify. And understanding that separation between new versus returning at a site level, whether GA4 or through Shopify itself, whatever your platform is, and coordinating that over time with a 1 to 7 day click via the ad platform itself. Because the fundamental, I think, mistake, and I learned this when it comes to whatever attribution third-party platform you're using, even if it's Shopify, if that data on the conversions isn't getting pushed back into Facebook, and this really shows up with Triple Whale, Northbeam, or any of the other larger build out, if it's not getting pushed back, you can't optimize in platform. And that's the only place you can actually optimize your spend. It only has access to the information that it knows. So it's one thing to have a really clear picture in your own mind of how those coordinate with each other, but making sure the data is being pushed back into the platform so that you know how lean, what is the leanest we can run on a 1 to 7 day click inside the app platform itself. And what does that mean when it comes to actual new versus returning customer revenue in the place that people give us money? That's what I'm really keen in understanding.
Awesome recap there, Aaron. I would love to take it to Audacity. What are you thinking here, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I think I echo a lot of what the other panelists have said so far, but I think to kind of round it out, something that's important to recognize is that ROAS is the most reliable when it's not looked at in isolation, right? Like it is just one KPI, and oftentimes that becomes a very attractive one, especially for e-commerce brands, but it is one data point within an ecosystem. So as Nava meant, as she mentioned, we talk to merchants all the time about clean data in means clean data out, right? So really focus on the data integrity when you're doing your setup so that you can have access to clean insights so you can sustainably grow your business. And then as Aaron mentioned, yeah, be able to take that data and segment it in a very strategic way, push it back to your customers. That's something that that Dacity does as well. So add them to the list. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is you cannot look at ROAS in isolation. It needs to be seen in conjunction with your other KPIs, with your CPA, with your AOV, with your conversion rate. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But yeah, I just think like the most reliable measure is not ROAS independent and by itself. You really need to think of your entire ecosystem to grow strategically. I'll say that. Like if you're just after growth and acquisition and that's the phase of business you're in, then like, maybe that's one thing. But if you want to grow sustainably, you have to focus on the ecosystem.
Great
Lest it be
call out.
misunderstood. Wait. Lest it be misunderstood. I was actually trying to dig on those other ones that I mentioned. So I won't say their names out again. But when you do, you got all this amazing data, like the beautiful displays. But that's like the dirty secret of most attribution platforms is it doesn't actually push anything back, and you can't then. So okay,
Yeah.
I'll stop
So
whispering. No, that's so right.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, we crave that kind of two-way sync between data. I like what you mentioned that maybe there is a phase where that can be a focus or a team, right, with whatever they're doing. So I like also that we don't want to isolate it with so many, with just how brands can engage, on social, through video, like so many acceptable ways now to get that engagement. It makes sense that our metric is evolving for how we actually track that engagement down the line. Thank you. And quickly, you want to wrap us up here on your thoughts for this one?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Honestly, I think everybody hit the nail on the head, especially Aaron. I can definitely relate to having to separate your ROAS and all your other metrics when you're viewing returning customers and new customers. I feel like that definitely needs to be separated. And then Elizabeth really hit it on the head when she said how it can't be the only metric you're looking at. A lot of brands do just rely on ROAS, but it can't be the only one. There's so many other important metrics, and I feel like Dacity is the perfect tool to help with that.
Heck yes. Thank you, McAllister. I do see the chat. We have a few follow-up questions on what exactly do we mean by pushing data back in? I think maybe Elizabeth, you kind of worded it that way.
Yeah.
You want to take this?
Yeah, I can take this one. So basically, you're getting a bunch of data back on how customers are interacting with not just your advertisements, but like your site, right? So you can segment your customer lists in such a way and then push them back into your marketing platforms. So like Meta, like Klaviyo, Attentive, Google Ads. So you build those customer lists to target and retarget more efficiently. So you're not just kind of like spray and hope it works. You're saying, okay, we understand the customer is behaving in this way based on this data. So we want to target them specifically. And because you have all that data, at least within Dacity, right, by how we're integrating with your different sources, you have access to be able to then push it. It's like a two-way street now. So you can push it into your marketing tools for more efficient targeting. And yeah, so if you have any more questions, you can check out our website too. We have and our blog has pretty good content on this as well. But yeah, hopefully that kind of clears things up.
Yeah, I think so. The latest question. So we're talking sending data like email address, for example, and then the platforms can better target. Yeah, exactly. And any additional data, aka zero and first party data that you're collecting on your website via quizzes or any other channel like through text or email.
This is actually a really important just in the weeds point. And I apologize if stepping on toes. Each ad platform channel has different thresholds of the amount of people you need in each list. So if we're specifically talking about customer lists, Meta, 100 people is totally fine. Google and Microsoft, you need at least 1,000. And in order for it to actually be an updated, useful list where you can actually target and it intelligently speaks to the algorithm, there actually need to be net new emails added every 1 to 2 days within that 30-day period of the 1,000 people. So if you do not have enough people in that list, that is totally fine. It's okay to just upload the data as you're going. It's kind of like a mutual fund. You start and you invest what you can and you get it set up so the infrastructure is there. So as your business grows and as you get more people, you have that infrastructure in place. Because the worst thing is you have an amazing account and then third-party cookies go away and you can't target at all and you're stuck. So just make sure that you're honoring the minimum required.
Great call out. Yeah, to check out any minimums on those platforms. Thank you, Nava. I love it. We have some great questions coming in. I'll leave it to panelists if we can answer any of those kind of newer ones, but I'm going to hop into our next question and theme. A note for everyone watching: in the slide deck that you'll get in the recording, you'll have some great examples of pop-ups and retargeting that you can do on the website. So I advise getting back to this slide here. Hopping into question 2, replacement metric for ROAS. What can brands look at for a more complete story? And then we have a MER over ROAS. So not anything we have to answer all together, but would love to hear just where everyone takes this and maybe how you combine this whole kind of question that came in. I'll start with Alan from Blue Stout. What are you feeling on this one?
Well, why don't you go to somebody else first? Because we've got more of an alternative, as sort of an addition to this. But let's focus on, I think, the ROAS piece first.
Yeah. Let me see here. Nava, can we start with you here?
Hog all the time. So I'll keep this really short. Profit. Use profit. Look at the actual gross profit that you make. One thing that's actually really exciting from the Google API standpoint, they just released new metrics that are available on the e-commerce side that you can actually look at gross profit, cost of items sold. So you can actually get some really complex, beautiful reporting metrics that can then be fed into Dacity, can be fed into Data Studio, a whole bunch of things. We're managing your PMAX, shameless plug for Optimizer. Using profit as that guiding point is a far more useful metric. And the reason for it is that ROAS, revenue, can sometimes become too expensive and you actually lose money even though you made a whole bunch of revenue because the cost of acquiring that revenue doesn't equate in a useful way. So if you make profit your guiding light, it's much harder to fall into that revenue trap that the algorithms are predisposed to put you into.
Nice. So more of that bigger picture view of like the end goal profit.
Yes.
Excellent. Customers.ai, Virginia, can we get your 2 cents here?
I love that perspective, Nava. I will have to check out that Google API and those new capabilities that you mentioned. I actually kind of think that Elizabeth's last response was like the perfect one. Like we're not looking at ROAS in a vacuum. We're looking at AOV, LTV, segmentation by engaged visitor, returned visitor. And there's not really one metric for like the guiding light. It's everything in the balance.
Yeah, good look at everything together. Aaron, what are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, so I stand on the shoulders of giants. I'm going to actually drop in here a fantastic piece that I helped put together, I don't know, about a year and a half ago with Dave Recook, who's the CEO of Bamboo Earth. It's one of the brands that CTC still currently owns. On marketing efficiency ratio, MER, total revenue divided by total ad spend. And this piece in particular digs into, yes, MER is a really good barometer for the health of your spend, as long as what Nava, brought in as far as profitability goes, balancing that with, I loved how you said the cost of revenue. That's such a good, because not all revenue is created equal. So what this piece really digs into is marginal MER and marginal AMER, which is new customer MER. So really looking at the power of your ad spend to drive new customers. And what is that not only break even point, but when do you start losing dollars on the next dollar you spend? So there's a crap ton of charts inside of that one and formulas that Dave really walked through about how he uses it himself. So it's one of those dog food examples, just great from somebody who's an operator at the front lines. But again, it comes back to that sort of the total blended, but sometimes blended ROAS, MER is another, swap those two in and out versus like NCAC, customer cost of acquisition, or AMER. How much is your total ad spend against new customer revenue? And is that backing out to, right, less than right? Is it less than you're actually making on it so that you're making money when somebody purchases from you?
Great insight there, Aaron. Thank you so much. I would love to take it to Elizabeth to follow you up from Dacity.
Sure. I think again, kind of sticking with the vein of looking at ROAS not in isolation, I think something that's really interesting and a missed opportunity is actually looking at kind of what happens post-acquisition. So the lifetime value of your customers who enter through different channels. So it's great to look at ROAS on the front end and be like, oh, great, we have great return on this channel. But over time, how much do those customers acquired via those channels actually end up spending with you? What is their health? Because something might seem really, really attractive up front, but again, back to that idea of sustainable growth, right? Is it paying off in the long run? And again, what is the focus of your business during your life cycle, right? And so, but I think that it's not necessarily a replacement for ROAS, but it's again something that should be looked at in conjunction with ROAS is that lifetime value by first order channel. So you can be really, really efficient with where you put your dollars on the front end to increase lifetime value on the back end. I think that like pulling those things together helps kind of complete that story.
Yeah,
LTV by channel, so good. And then LTV by first product purchase too.
Yes.
I would say
yes.
Be a massive unlock for people will have wildly different values in 60-day, 90 days, 1-year increments based on what product they first came in through. So like channel, product. Oh, and you won't see that in the ad platform.
Correct.
No,
yeah.
not at
But
all.
we have a shameless Dacity plug. We have a dashboard that visualizes that. So certainly have access to those type of data sets and analyses, which is pretty cool.
I love that. Yeah, you just like said it and it's like, oh yeah, I also can do that. Perfectly for you. I like what you were saying. Yeah, Aaron, you mentioned like that like second layer segment of the product, or kind of just knowing that first engagement journey that is actually getting them into that whole conversion cycle and optimizing that. Sounds like the name of the game if we're kind of trying to focus a little more granularly. But I love that breakdown of what just that different kind of purchase behavior can show us. Cool. I do see some chats coming in. That's great. We've got some responses in there. I do want to get to Clickly over here from McAllister. What are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, and I'll try to keep it a little faster than last time. But yeah, the way I kind of view MER is basically, and I think Aaron said this a little bit, kind of like a blended version of ROAS. And my view here is kind of the difference is it takes into account all marketing spend across all platforms. And I think it is generally a really good indication of marketing efficacy. But it won't always, what I've seen is show the brand and show the marketer the underperforming platforms. So that's why I typically recommend to brands still trying to back out ROAS for certain channels, but also leverage a good MTA platform that will show you kind of a full holistic view of what channels are driving what. So kind of a deeper dive is what kind of everybody's saying right now, and I agree with that.
Great follow-up. Thank you so much. Nava, we started off with you. Alan, did we want to come back to you for this one?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. The reason I want everybody else to go, because everybody's talking about ROAS and the actual platform side, and that's, I think, the point of the question. But sort of the alternative to that is, yes, you've got platform, you've got traffic acquisition, but the other side is the site. And as a complement to it, I would 100% agree with everything Aaron said in terms of how to track MER, in terms of optimizing on the platform side. But then at the end of the day, we've worked with lots of brands where all of a sudden something that was unprofitable became profitable because they found a way to increase average revenue or AOV on a per visitor basis, on a new customer acquisition basis. And all of a sudden that platform, all of a sudden that ad or that campaign that wasn't working, all of a sudden now is working. So I think it's equally as important to make sure you're tracking, understanding specifically for new customer acquisition, average revenue per site visitor. There's some, yes, we can talk about profit, right? But if we're looking at the easiest data to extract, average revenue per site visitor is going to show you where the pain points in the site are. So you might have new customer acquisition where average revenue per site visitor is half of what it is for a different, campaign or different traffic source. And that's going to tell you immediately where the pain points and areas of opportunity are to optimize, maybe present upsells, bundles, put them through a different consumer flow that's going to result in a higher AOV per purchase. All of that is going to completely change the math on acquisition. And I think you need to be looking at the site side performance just as much as you're looking at, MER, et cetera, that's being driven by platform.
I'm totally with you. Yeah. I like what you were saying, kind of course, by the channel, by the source, looking at that revenue is important. And then with your website, it's kind of like you're putting bumpers on. You like, okay, you're behaving this way. This is kind of the journey that's going to take you to the optimal place for you as a brand. And then maybe it's more you like also have these test options too. So when you are like trying to gauge these metrics, consider those A/B tests that you're running and that it's going to be okay to see that difference in what is performing. I love it. Thank you for sending all the links in the chat. That's great. I'll include that in the recording email for everyone too, in case you're just hanging in there with the prez. Cool. So question 3 that we'll get into, obtaining/enabling better attribution. How are brands evolving? So attribution, I kind of think of that post, what even brought them there. So I would love to start this off with customers.ai on your thoughts here.
Attribution is a beast. First touch, last touch, multi-touch journeys. So I think, we've for a long time been really reliant on third-party data to give us a better picture of our customers and our audiences. But if you do anything this year as you're evolving your strategies, I'd say you can up-level your tracking and intelligence by getting like first-party data. So there's going to be a big operational lift, I think, for a lot of the businesses that I talk to and work with. But it's really critical to have like the full data warehouse, full picture of a multi-channel, full funnel journey from acquisition to retention to repeat customer.
I love that. Thank you, Virginia. Would love to take it to Aaron from Recart. What are you thinking on this one?
Oh, no, I am like hardcore going to defer on this to somebody like Nava or Elizabeth. Oh my goodness.
No, let's take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's take it to Datsby.
last non-direct. So one of those two lovely people.
I gotcha.
Okay, I can kick it off. So I think this has already been brought up, right? Like GA4, the launch of GA4 has come with its challenges, brought a lot of excitement to the ecosystem, and caused a really big headache for merchants. And I think, however, with that being said, it is still the source of truth for the lion's share of merchants we work with. So something we've spent a lot of time over the last year and a half doing is try to figure out, okay, how can we make the GA4 data make sense? And so what we've actually, like one of the bummers about the transition to GA4 is the loss of first click and assisted attribution modeling. Like they're basically only give you visibility into last click. So what we've done is actually by way of using GA4 via BigQuery exports, replicated the ability to do first click modeling. So now our platform actually allows you to customize and rank order your attribution modeling. So you can set your priority between survey response, which as Virginia has mentioned, right, like first party data, like what they're telling you they're doing is really important. So you can say, hey, I want to rank order survey response, maybe discount code usage, last ad and marketing click, first click, and then assisted attribution. And you create this waterfall of logic, which gives merchants more granular visibility into attribution to better manage channel performance. So I think that, again, the key and like a theme I will like continue to stand on the mountain of is looking at the ecosystem, like not just looking at one data point in one way. And that's where, if you're only focusing on last click, that only gets you so far. So how can you kind of look at your data in a blended way or create this waterfall logic to get you greater insights?
Yeah, kind of get out of like the blinders view.
Yeah.
It's like it's okay to see everything at once and have that full view. I
Yeah,
love that. Thank you, Elizabeth. Let's take it over to Clickly. McAllister, what are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, call me a broken record, because as I said last time, and kind of hopping off of Elizabeth has at Audacity there, having a platform with multi-touch attribution that can show you more than last touch is really key for brands. It's going to show a full view of what channels are really driving what, and once again, a broken record. Just keeping in mind that GA4 and other platforms like GA4 aren't always showing you a full view and full MTA and only really giving you a partial view of what's working. And having a platform like Dacity is really key for brands to succeed in the marketing space and really grow at an efficient rate.
100%. Thank you, McAllister. Nava, what are you thinking on this one?
I have two thoughts.
Okay.
Thought number one, everyone needs to go follow Elizabeth, and just amazing insights. That was gold. The second thought, and this is going to probably be somewhat controversial. I'm a huge fan of the fact that data-driven attribution, or what used to be exclusively for the big advertisers, big sites where you need to have a minimum of 600 conversions in a 30-day period, like huge amounts of data, got rolled out to everybody. And here's why I'm a fan of it. It has caused all brands to take a step back and stop making knee-jerk reactions on channels off of first click or last click attribution. Because what used to happen is that people would say, well, this is not doing well. I'm not seeing any leads, or the revenue is not as good here versus here. And they would kill a really good channel that was responsible for the lion's share of who was coming to them. So I think the fact that we've had to kind of take that step back and have a minimum of those 7 days for the data to kind of process is actually really good. The other thing that I will call out, and it's a less obvious thing, UTM parameter structure is now probably one of the most important things you can do, because universal analytics used to be kind of the easy, lazy button that a lot of us would do of just connecting your universal analytics. UTMs are all sorted and we're fine. Now you really need to make sure that A, your syntax is correct on your parameters and on your events. Otherwise, you're going to have multiple events of double, triple, quadruple counting. You also want to make sure that you're being kind to not just the SEOs in the room, the PPCs in the room, the social community managers in the room, like the email marketers in the room. Everyone needs to get on the same board or on the same boat with UTM structure. And actually, one shout out I'll give to Justuno. I worked with them for a little bit. The UTM structure system at Justuno, and that they then in turn carry on to their customers, is impeccable. So if you take one simple go-do away from this webinar, make sure that your UTM structures are immaculate across your organic, across your paid, and that you agree on how you want everything labeled. And it's as simple as things like cost per click CPC versus PPC. Just make sure that everything is uniform.
Oh my gosh, the
Yes.
one thing, yes, that is the joy. I'm like, that is the most boring part of this entire, and it's the most crucial. Go, for the love of all things holy. Lock down your UTM structures across your teams, yes. Yeah, okay.
100%. Yeah, that's the energy that needed. That's like needed to be called out, and appreciate the call out, Nava, which, yeah, you can easily retarget these campaigns once they arrive on site. And whenever they're coming from SMS or email, that's just an experience that's craving to get some engagement or something personalized and dynamic, which is what the UTMs allow you to do once they're further on along in their funnel. Fabulous. Okay, let's see. Alan, can we hear from you on this one?
Yeah, I'm just gonna basically pump Elizabeth up again, because it's GA4 sucks, and it's the reality, right? And so you kind of, to get full attribution, you kind of have to use an additional platform to do it. We use Dacity for a lot of our clients, so it does work. Aside from that, though, just to add a little bit, GA4 is the data still good, right? And so there's no reason you can't use it. It just doesn't have the same depth that I think it used to have in UA. It's also just a lot harder to access. But I still think a lot of that data should be relied upon and used in sort of daily decision making, And to do that, our recommendation is to actually, instead of just trying to get into GA4 and sort through the data, build a custom Looker Studio, Google Data Studio, whatever you want to call it. It's a really simple, well, I shouldn't say it's a simple tool. It's a great flexible tool for pulling in GA4 data and displaying it in a way that marketers in your team can actually use. And so that's what we do with all of our brands.
Heck yes. Is it something that you are like monitoring or updating constantly, Alan? Is that what you
Yeah.
mean by flexible? Yeah, or it can be.
We are. Yeah, you can be. And it's once it's hooked up and it's pulling in the data, you can constantly refresh it. But you can build out custom slices of that GA4 data to look at it in a very particular way or to answer very specific questions. We have a standard setup we do for all of our brands. And then as we work with those brands over time, we start to set up very customized views to help them answer questions that they're asking on a daily, weekly basis, but just don't have the time or the know-how to dig in the GA4 data to answer. But the click attribution is a big problem.
Yeah, I feel you. And I think with there being like many teams kind of working on the same project, right? They're just looking at different metrics or just like a level below or level above. So that's great that you get so granular in that. I see a question in here that I just wanted to get to. So I build segments often, but usually for Google Ads. Are you saying that you use them for Meta, TikTok, etc.? The segments?
I'll chime in real quick.
Mhm.
For Meta, I actually find that I trust email lists better than I do for the segments from GA4. So when I'm talking about those segments, that's typically syncing through to Google Ads or Microsoft. Both of them have very good compatibility there. For Meta and for TikTok, half the reason I believe that they have shorter or lower minimums to connect is actually because they're kind of contained. They don't necessarily like integrating as nicely as the other channels do. But one shout out that I don't think enough people are paying attention to, and since we're talking about profit, we're talking about audiences and attribution, Amazon's non-seller, non-endemic audiences are insane. So if you've been struggling to build an audience or for all of your other channels, consider running a small test. They have impeccable first-party audiences because it's like their first-party audiences of all of the different buying behaviors on Amazon that you can then translate into lead gen. So for example, say you run a auto mechanic shop. Wouldn't it be really nice if you could target people who are on a rotation of certain cars and they know that that car is due for an inspection or is due for XYZ upgrades? You can target that person. You can also target that person based off of interest. You can kind of come up with a fun, creative bit of creative. So I would definitely make sure that you're honoring, and this is, again, I apologize, off topic from ROAS, but honoring the personas and honoring how each channel interacts with different audiences and what you can do with each channel.
Heck yes. Great answer, Nava. Thank you. Cool, Jeremy. Great question there. I love it. We're going to get into I do have a case study here for anyone that is going to check out the deck after. This is showing that data from a full experience that's been enabled on site. That is a great follow-up to the UTM conversation we just had. So based off of that UTM, you could have everything from a quiz to a custom exit offer here in the middle to actual product recommendations as they're browsing throughout. So just with that, that's 3 touch points on site that see high engagement when they're strategically placed, either based off of behavioral triggers or based off of just that UTM information that you know that could be coming from what Nava was saying in those different segments that you're building and kind of knowing what those personas are doing or behaving. Perfect. So get into our question number 4. This was a hot one. I love that we're getting into this one. So point of view from a registrant to the webinar, struggling with company wanting us to produce 8 to 10 times ROAS. Anything below 5 is deemed as bad. We need to give some advice here. So would love to start this out with Recart. Aaron, what are you thinking on this one?
Oh my gosh. This is because I jumped in during the pregame, isn't it? Yeah, all right. Yeah, my quick hot take on this is who is cranking at a 5x in platform ROAS and mad about it, right? This is or 8 to 10, let alone. This is now if you're thinking about a more realistic goal of like a 1.5 or 2 for in-platform on a 1 to 7 day click, and you just can't go below that and you can't seem to break it, I think that's way more meaningful, because that's going to actually result in far higher in delayed attribution, meaning people that come, they visit, there really is additional like real value to be collected post click outside of the windows that, with all the limitations now in platform to on site, that you just can't see. Right. And that comes back to coordinating the 2 data points for what are we getting historically, month over month, seasonality included, so we can look at least, last 365 or longer days of in-platform ad platform data versus the on-site GA4 data. That's the coordination I'm talking about. And that, I think, is often the antidote to, if we're struggling in platform, the answer isn't always get better performance in platform. It's often, do we really know that we're aiming at the right targets for what that produces for us over time? And making sure, my goodness, making sure if you're being handed down something, like this is one of those pieces, if you're being handed down from on high, a goal like this, I think this actually betrays a fundamental misalignment between something like possibly finance leadership and the marketing, the ad buying, the media buyers who are in there out in the trenches. So I think that actually goes more into education in the 2 different directions and having maybe even a hard conversation about what that means.
Yeah, getting aligned. I like it. I like where you took that. Just understand, are we on the same page in general? Heck yes. Dacity, Elizabeth, what are you thinking on this one?
Sure. I certainly echo what Aaron what Aaron just said. I think potentially look for misalignment between leadership and those targets in reality. But I mean, I think like from what we've seen in the market, Meta will have the biggest ROAS spread, but it ranges maybe from 4 to 10. So, okay, potential to get up there. Amazon, you're looking more at the 3. Google Ads looking more at a 2. So, like, okay, maybe you have these high ROAS targets. Is that split out by channel? Like, number 1 is what you should look at. And then number 2, a thing to keep in mind, again, going back to life cycle of your business, is ROAS targets and the weight they're carried should be dependent based on where you're at in your business life cycle. So if you want to aggressively acquire new customers, then higher cost of acquisition and a lower ROAS should be tolerable. And then as you grow and look to become more profitable, you start to kind of see that lever shift. So those targets, again, should be really dependent on kind of where you are at as a business and what stage you're at. And then kind of just the last pin I will put in this is, if you're looking for ways to increase your ROAS, so sorry if your target is an 8 or a 10, but if you're looking to get your way there, focus on experimenting with your ad placement, audiences targeting, like we've kind of talked about, A/B testing with copy. That's something that I think copy and creative goes underutilized, and then refine your keywords on Google. So just some tips. This is all outlined in one of our blog posts that I've posted in the comments as well. So in case you couldn't write quickly enough, you can go back and reference.
I was gonna say, you're just like, these are just some little tips, some like really big tips,
It'll be great.
I would say, yeah. These are awesome. I had a follow-up question for you, Elizabeth. Is there like a time frame where you would say, like, where someone can be okay with that higher cost but lower ROAS, like where you're kind of looking, okay, we should really kind of regroup or rethink this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really great question. And I would say there's a lot of factors that go into that, right? And it depends on your profitability targets, because a lot of times early stage for a business, you're not necessarily focused on profitability, you're focused on growth. But you hit that point where the pendulum starts to switch, whether that's because you are running out of cash, your board, right, is telling you, hey, we need to switch to profitability. Like there's other factors versus just like a best practice timeline, I would say. And like, that's what it's really dependent on. So pay attention to, I guess, leadership direction. And that's when you know, okay, we need to start adjusting our targets accordingly.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for that, Elizabeth. Let's take it over to McAllister at Clickly. What are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, first things first is my smoke alarm decided to be low battery. So if you hear it in the background, I'd like to apologize
All
off the
good.
bat. But I think Elizabeth was 100% correct. That's exactly what I had down for my notes is personally what I've seen at Clickly with dozens, if not hundreds of brands, is the brands that are aiming for lower ROAS and they're comfortable with a 2x ROAS, 3x ROAS, they're hitting such high numbers of sales coming in and they're seeing a lot more new customers coming in because they're comfortable spending more for those new customers. And then in addition with that is the brands that just want the high ROAS and they want 6+, they want all the way up to 10, they're going to see a lot less new customers coming in and they're going to see a lot of returning customers enter. Just because those are the cheaper customers you're going to get. So we can hit it, but you're going to get a lot less new customers. So exactly what Elizabeth said is it's really what the company is looking for to do and the growth stage that they're at. Are they focused on retargeting or new? And exactly what Aaron said is honestly just an open explanation and explaining to the people not in marketing that don't understand is if this is your goal, this is what we're going to attain. You want a high ROAS, it's going to be harder to get new customers because it's going to cost a lot more.
I love that. Kind of knowing why it may not get to that and being able to relay that to your team is important. But yeah, like we've been saying, getting on the same page. I would love to hear from you, Nava, on this one, what you're thinking from the optimizer view.
So it's interesting. I agree with everything that was said. And but I have one anecdotal story. And this is where anecdotes versus big data is really important to balance. So I have my optimizer perspective and then I have my anecdote story. My anecdote story is I worked with a client who had to hit, and it was an e-commerce client for certain products, 8 to 10 ROAS, not because it was an unreasonable goal, but because they're essentially a reseller. So from a margin standpoint, and this is where profit versus ROAS comes in, it was required, but there was a reason behind why that goal was there, and steps were taken to make sure that that goal was attainable. It's not like the number came out of nowhere. It wasn't an unreasonable goal. So that is the anecdote. The plethora of data, because we like to run studies at Optimizer. One thing I actually found very interesting from a ROAS standpoint is how closely ROAS, when we look at studies, falls behind profit, and that advertisers who tend to spend a lot more have closer ROAS goals and ROAS actually being met to their profit than smaller folks do. And I firmly believe this has everything to do with learning periods and the amount of data that's available. So all of this is to say, this is a very long-winded way to get to, if you are a smaller business, you are going to see typically higher click-through rate. You might see a higher conversion rate because the amount of things are smaller, but your ROAS might not follow that. So your actual ROAS, especially if you have a smaller budget on an expensive network, is going to be a struggle. Whereas larger companies, they can invest a ton of data, a ton of money, get a ton of data back. They blitz through the learning periods and they're fine. So give yourself grace to have the amount of time that is correct for the amount of budget that you are working with. If you are a small advertiser working with $500 a month, you cannot ask yourself to do well on Google search. Like it's going to be a struggle. You should explore Meta, you should explore Microsoft, you should explore, frankly, smart campaigns, but don't look at Google search. If you're someone advertising 5 million a month, look at Google search, but make sure that you have very specific data goals in mind and that you're connecting your offline conversions and your existing customers to better shape the spend.
Well,
It has so much to do with brand awareness and problem awareness as well. There's like two sides of this where like some of the legitimate enterprise clients, you can crank Dynamic product ads on Meta all day, every day. If you're in fashion and people know they recognize it, like if you, especially you've got retail locations that are overlapping with people's real lives. I mean, that kind of stuff where, and so you also just can't expect to run the same type of campaigns when you see, just because they're big, just because they're doing well, that doesn't mean that divide you just talked about by size has so much to do with brand awareness and what you can get away with and make money off of, as well as the problem aware. Like, how acutely is your audience? Are you at an education stage where it's going to take more effort, more clarity, more explanation to cross that bridge, which is going to cost more? Or are you at a perfect moment of selling masks in the middle of COVID, right? This is the, right? So it has to do with brand aware, problem aware is the two. I would have a really clear understanding of that.
Just to piggyback off of your comment, one thing that I think is really funny is that people complain and cry about Performance Max, which, if you're not aware, is kind of an all-in-one campaign type on Google and Microsoft, that it includes search, video, display, discover, Gmail, all shopping, all the different types. And one of the reasons that they complain and cry about it is that video is included. Well, I hate to tell you this, but video is actually how the lion's share of folks are now consuming their content and want to get exposed. And if you're saying, well, I don't want to deal with video, you're handing your competitors all of that money because they're willing to do it, and they'll do it probably worse than you would because you care, you love your customers. And it's actually really, really cheap. So that's another thing too, of people get very upset over, oh, my money is being spent on all these cheap, non-useful, not transactional clicks. Well, that money was spent to make sure that your transactional search can pick up the desire and the intent. So let's give PMax a little bit more grace, especially with all the tools that have evolved. It's good.
Yeah, we're all evolving. We're all learning. Great comment there. Yeah, Aaron pointed out they'll do it worse than you and they'll win. Like that's just gotta work us up a little bit, right? To just test it out. And with the creative stuff, like that, creating one video, one creative goes so far in your funnel. It goes into your email, to your SMS to be reused, chopped up, shortened up into your pop-ups. That video desire to engage with video is also translating to your on-site website, on desktop and on mobile. So along with like the product discovery or the brand discovery and awareness that Aaron was getting at, it's also about creating something that's like fun to engage with, but that's not necessarily easy, but like something that your competitors are not doing that makes it feel really different and feel like you're standing out. I love that recap. Alan from Blue Stat, what are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, I think everybody else has got a better answer than me on this one. So I think I gotta back Aaron, and I gotta back everybody else on this one. The way I view this is that, and I think the takeaway is that you can't look at anything in isolation. Nothing works in a vacuum, right? So you have to look at a holistic view of how the customer journey is how the customer journey is segmented. We look at it the same way as conversion rate. When brands come to us and go, hey, if we could just double our conversion rate, then it changes the game for us. And it's like, sure, let's cut your prices in half. We'll double your conversion rate, right? Like it's one metric. Yeah, we can make it happen, right? Yeah. But but is that the goal, right? And so it has to always go back to what's the goal. And so I would agree with everybody else here.
Heck yeah. Thank you, Alan. Great notes in there, Nava, into the chat. Appreciate you. We've got some timing there. Cool. I know we're over on time. We're going to power through to our last section here. So anyone that can hang on, go for it, or this will be in the recording. So feel free to hop off. Another slide I have here of examples for easy retargeting that we can do. Kind of how we're speaking, like if this is all you want to add to your website, if you don't want to have pop-ups or messages or things that are kind of immediately in the face, banners are the way to go. And you can make this as dynamic and as trackable as you would like based on what you're adding into the designs. I don't have a video in this like last banner, but you'll see it is a carousel of many messages. So kind of also addressing that is someone in the education phase and how different sources or channels may behave based on how you're prepping them to get to the website or to whatever channel it is that they're purchasing on. With social commerce, that's a whole different conversation of like, oh, they're just going to stay on that platform. So we can have a different combo there. In our final comments, we're going to get some feedback from everyone on your favorite retention tool, resource, or example from the wild. So I would love to start out with Elizabeth from Dacity. What are you thinking on this one?
Sure. So I think I'm partial, but Dacity has great retention analytics as well. So I'll chat a little bit about that. I think the key in retention analytics is looking at change in behavior. So you identify your customer segment, but it's important to know how are people moving between the segments, because the key is not just retargeting the right group, but when to target them. I think that when is really important for retention analytics. And so understanding customer behavior and how it changes over time helps you recognize, oh, I've got a group that maybe was high value and now is falling into my churning high value bucket, and how I go talk to my churning high value customers is a little bit different than I should be talking to my single purchasers, right? So
Yeah.
you create these segments based on kind of your belief as a business. And at Dacity, we have pre-built segments, but you also have the ability to customize as you want to define them. And then you look at how customers are kind of flowing between these segments. And ultimately, you really want to keep people in your high value customer segment, right? And then as kind of I've talked about before, then taking those different customer lists from your segments and being able to push them back into your marketing sources for targeted marketing. I think having access to data is only as useful as you're able to act on it. And so this is a way to take, great, I have data points, but if I can view them over time and analyze that movement, I can build better strategy around it. So that is my plug on retention and
Perfect.
Capacity.
Yeah, I'll follow that up, because you were saying like you are building the segments. You have the data, Dacity, you build the segments. With these segments, that's what you can use to create conditions and workflows in Justuno to actually create those on-site experiences. So you're digesting all of those segments. How are people behaving? And I love that long-term note, because with Justuno, it is as smart and as capable of measuring someone or targeting someone that hasn't purchased maybe in the last 90 days. And they're arriving on site. That could be a perfect case for like your best offer or your best educational message, wherever you know that, however you think a message will really get them into the next step in that conversion funnel, which isn't necessarily like, bam, take them to cart. It can be an add to cart to get to the free shipping. It's just that next touch point, which looks a little different on desktop and mobile, right? Those behaviors, I think that's something really important to consider. I know we're always saying desktop and mobile, but for this thought on just like how different personas or segments are performing, I'm sure Dacity can give you the down low on that one. I love that. Thank you, Elizabeth. We'll take it over to Clickly. What are you thinking on this for your favorites?
Yeah, obviously I'm biased because Clickly does retention, but little ad placement is the best thing about Clickly that I love about our platform is there's no contracts, which is always great. You can sign up with Clickly today and an hour later give up if you want to. And it's a commission-based model. And brands set their commission. And I always make the same cheesy joke. They could go up to 100% commission. I'd probably get a promotion and a raise if they do, because that'd be the first time ever. But they base it on whatever they're comfortable with and based off their average order value, which allows them to basically estimate with their marketing tools and their marketing budget an insured ROAS that they want to hit. So that's why it was perfect that I was speaking in the webinar. I thought that was perfect for Clickly. But in reality, Clickly is not and will never be a one-all be-all tool. In reality, every single company on this webinar is essential for e-commerce brands to use, whether it's Dacity, so they get better attribution information, whether it's Recart, so that way they could do retention and retargeting. Every single tool on here is necessary for e-commerce brands to ensure growth and ensure marketing success overall.
Heck yes, thank you. Yeah, Clickly is like so literal in your return there, and it's so easy to use. Thank you for that. I would love to take it over to Aaron at Recart. I know you got a jet. You want to give us your faves here?
Yeah. So I've got two links I'm going to drop in here. One is to know best practices. My friend Alex G, she is an absolute beast. That breaks down, I think she goes 1 million, 5 million, 10 million and beyond retention strategies. She also, if you go to know best practices, just released a freaking email marketing playbook that is off the charts. So if you're thinking about retention, and then also, no best practices. Oh, get it. Eli Weiss, another friend. This is a great piece from his newsletter on retention strategies, retention levers. Those are two that I go back to constantly for thinking about how do you bucket these, how do you action against them, and what really moves the needle. And of course, the big spoiler in all of that is, guess what the absolute best retention strategy is? Having a product people want to buy more than once. So there's that. I don't know. Yeah, that's the jam.
That's it. That's all you need. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate you. Would love to take it over to Virginia, customers.ai. What are you thinking on this for your faves?
Well, Nava, you mentioned that uploading your email list works really great in Meta. So what about those customer lists that haven't really turned into customers or maybe not even opted in to your website yet? So with visitor identification, this is kind of trick that a lot of advertisers don't know about, but anonymous visitors can be identified and then fed into your meta audiences as well. You can basically restore retargeting audiences or visitor retargeting audiences. And also, with Advantage Plus audiences, you can give a suggestion for the Advantage Plus, tools for targeting that are going to be better than that kind of garbage in, garbage out situation, giving a really strong signal of who their best customers are for more of your kind of like new customer acquisition campaigns.
Gotcha. I love that. Thank you. And I'll take it over to, let's see here. Nava, can you share your faves here?
Yeah, so I will shamelessly plug that Optimizer allows you to not only connect data in to use our rule engine, which is basically PPC insurance. You use your amazing brilliance to determine if this, then that logics for what you want to happen in your ad accounts. So you can have that be impacted by your actual customers, your actual conversion data, offline conversion data, connects with Shopify, connects with HubSpot, Salesforce, so on and so forth. We also offer segment scoring, so you can have useful conversion values for your Microsoft, for your Google Ads, conversion bidding. But I want to make sure that I also give a really important shout out to the customer success team of every single organization. Your best retention tool is really talking to the amazing men, women, everything in between that sit on customer success organizations and speak to your customers and get those incredible insights. Marketing is a beautiful, amazing optimization tool, but where it gets its humanity is in the stories from your customers. So yes, absolutely check out every single one of our tools. Yes, absolutely dive headlong into all the documentation for technical setups, but don't forget the human element that comes from engaging with your customers and those amazing stories that your customer success and your sales organization can impart to you.
That's so great. Yeah. Cause we're always hearing like, oh, so-and-so did this, so-and-so is doing this. So yeah, it really celebrate those wins with your internal teams. Cool. We'll wrap us up. Alan from Blue Stout. What are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, well, this will be not necessarily a plug for Blue Stout, but we publish a weekly newsletter every single week. We run hundreds of A/B tests across 8 and 9-figure brands, and what we do is every single week we pull one of the best, most insightful winners from those tests, and we send it out to our newsletter. So it's if you're looking to find basically in a couple minutes a week, every single week, understand what is a new tactic you can implement on your site that's going to help improve conversion rates, AOV, and ultimately average revenue per site visitor. That's the plug. It's just a very quick 2 to 3 minute read every single week. And we break down the test we ran, why it worked, who it applied for, and how you can actually implement it for your brand. And it's just bluestout.com/newsletter in case you want to check it out.
Fabulous. Thank you for adding that. Yeah, the best and easiest read. I think that was great. Thank you, Alan. My last slide here is just our special offers when you mention this webinar. Speakers, if you've got to hop off, no worries at all. But this is what I'll send out in our recording email. So you'll have a link to redeem any of these offers, or some are just mentioning the webinar to that brand. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I have appreciated everyone's insight, and I've learned so much myself. So this has been awesome. I'm going to go ahead and end this, but if you have any questions, we do have just a little pop-up after this webinar. If you want to hear from any of our speakers or the brands, you can click that and then we'll get you connected. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you later.
Thanks, Justuno. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Big
you.
Thanks,
thanks,
Justuno.
y'all.
Bye, guys.
Bye.